Hello and a very good evening to all of you. I welcome you to today's live session. The topic that I'm going to discuss with you today is para jumbles, or which you also call sentence rearrangement question, which are a very common question not just in CAT exam but the other non-CAT exams also. So if I talk about the level of difficulty in the CAT exam, in spite of being the TETA question, these questions may be a little bit difficult because the kind of sentences that you get may not be that easy, or guessing their order may not be that easy. In that also the level is relatively good. In the rest of the non-CAT exam, these questions are highly scoring. So to first of all tell you what para jumbles is, you can say that from an excerpt from a paragraph, certain lines are picked and they have been jumbled in different options. You are supposed to read those jumbled sentences, think about the story behind those sentences, and then arrange them in a proper order so that they make a coherent paragraph. Now with option, this thing becomes relatively simple. But without option, it gets a little tricky. Let's say 5 sentences are there. You have guessed the opening sentence, you have guessed the closing sentence. What about the rest of 3-4 sentences? So this is how it may sometimes become tricky, but with practice nothing is impossible. So in this session I am going to share 5 tips with you that will make you master this particular question type in your exam, and trust me, if you practice the question according to these 5 tips, it is going to be highly beneficial for you. So without any further ado, let's get into the class. So let us see the 5 master tips, but before that you should know that to do sentence rearrangement question, you should know the technique or follow the technique which is stop AC. Now this is not air conditioner AC for sure. The stop AC is an acronym that we use to follow certain steps in solving the para jumble questions. The S stands for the subject or the theme. Let me quickly write it for you. Today's class, I am not going to keep it a lot of practice question type of a class. It's only basically related to the tips and tricks. So we will just do 1 or 2 questions, but we will see each and every sentence. We will try to understand that how to do and what should be the approach for the para jumble question, because we know that nature of verbal section is very subjective. In such situation or in these cases, the best you can do is to see what kind of approach you can go with and how to identify the most appropriate answer, and that will all come with practice only. So we will together practice. First of all we will see the tips and then practice 1 or 2 questions. And I can bet after looking at seeing this video and looking at these tips and tricks, you will definitely be able to at least do 2 out of the 3 para jumble questions. So S stands for the subject of the sentence. T stands for the theme of the paragraph. So what is the subject? What is being discussed in the whole paragraph is the subject. The theme is the main idea. So it is very clear that after reading all the sentences, you would realize that they are all more or less talking about the same thing or supporting the same thing. What is that idea that the author is trying to promote through this particular passage? You have to identify that main idea. Now, why are we doing all this? Because it invokes, or you can say it improves your understanding of the paragraph. You get to understand how a writer would write a paragraph, in what sequence, how he will connect different thoughts, what will be the transition from one idea to the other idea. So it's not a layman's language, it's a well-read person who has written a paragraph. Definitely there will be a pattern, there will be a structure in it. It's just that we have to decode that particular structure. We have to keep ourselves in his shoes and then think which idea I would have written first and what would follow it. So we will see different tricks today to identify this. So think about the main idea. What are all these sentences talking about? Now it is highly likely that you will find both of these things, the subject, what are we going to discuss, and what is the main idea. You will find it in the opening sentence. Right? So the next step is guessing the opening sentence. This is the most easy thing, I believe. If there are too many sentences, guessing the opening one is the most easy thing. So go for this one next. Then go for making certain pairs. Now one thing is clear, these are the 2 things that you can do. You can guess the opening, the sentence which introduces you to the subject, which introduces you to the main idea, which lay the basis and lay the tone for the rest of the paragraph. And then go for selecting certain pairs. So out of 4-5 line, definitely there would be 2 which would somehow talk about the same thing. So there can be different types of pair. I'm going to discuss it with you in the upcoming slides. Next is you need to arrange the sentences as of the order that you have made. Let's say you have guessed that E is the opening sentence. Clearly it introduces us to the subject. So that is the reason E is the opening. C and A is talking about the same thing. They have same keywords. So it forms a pair. Now we are left with B and D. So you just have to guess if you have to keep C and A first and then BD, or first the BD and then CA. So again, go for one such sentence which you believe is the most concluding type of sentence. If there are options in your exam, go for the option and then try to guess the sequence. So wise guessing works a lot in this. I hope this is clear. So a quick, you can say, eye-opener. This particular type of question, there will be 3 questions in your CAT exam from Para Jumble question and 2 from the Misfit questions. From Para Jumble it will be 3. So these 5 questions have no negative marking. These are known as theta question. So if you are somehow able to master this area, trust me, no one can stop you from getting these 5 questions correct. Right? Let us see the tips now. So step number 1, or you can say tip number 1 is opening sentence. You have to guess the introductory sentence out of all those sentences, which is the one you believe is the most generalized kind of sentence is and giving you a peep into what you are going to study or what you are going to read about. So it is generic in nature. It will present general ideas basically. So these are some of the things you should keep in mind about the introductory sentence. It will be generic in nature. After reading it, you would not feel that something should be preceding it. I'm not able to understand. So this one will make you understand what you're going to study about. So it's generic in its sense. Introduces the theme and the subject of the that particular paragraph, that whole paragraph. It uses proper noun. Now do not underestimate this point. For example, I am talking about a person named Rakesh. Obviously, I'll not directly start with he, his and him. In the first sentence, I would name the person. Only then I will go on using certain pronouns for the same person. So this is a very nice trick. Whenever you are reading sentences to identify the opening sentence, negate or eliminate all those options which directly have used a pronoun, and after reading those sentences, we feel like, okay, what have they used this pronoun for? So don't go with those sentences as the opening sentence. So you will have your opening sentence and a proper noun. Tip number 1 is always go generic to specific. Always remember this. For example, if the passage is about a person identifying himself or speculating over his identity, self-speculating over this, so what will the writer write about it? He would first of all mention a lot of factors that influence a person's identity, like the racial aspect, the national aspect, the upbringing of a person, the time of birth, the time of death, the kind of background he's living in, the kind of job he is into. After mentioning all these factors, then you see one such option which is only talking about racial and national identity. Obviously, the racial and national one is narrower. So always go from broader to the narrower. First of all, talk about all the factors or go with the option which is mentioning too many factors. Then come to the point which are the factors that author has picked and is further going to discuss. So that specification will come later on. Similarly, you can remember broader to narrower. For example, this racial national identity passage, you have mentioned different factors for a person to identify himself. Then you talked about the racial and national identity. What if then you come on only on the women and you talk about women finding it even more difficult to identify themselves in comparison to the men? Do you see that? You have narrowed it down even further. So it always works like this. I know it's a little vague, but I'm going to show you some examples also. And the more you practice following these tips, you will start understanding it. right? So once you have guessed our opening sentence, the first goal is reached. Now, step number 2 is finding certain pairs. Now, I know that I've already told you, out of the 5 sentences, there might be sentences that form a pair. But how to identify that they are a pair? So, sit and relax and see what kind of pairs can there be. First one is noun and pronoun pair. So just as I told you, the opening sentence would introduce you to the subject, and that is the reason it will use the proper noun. The following sentences will use a pronoun. Similarly, probably the whole passage is talking about the nation, and there are only 2 sentences that are talking about government. So one sentence uses the word government, and the second sentence says its policies are not according to what people want. After looking at the word its, your mind would again make you think that what is he using the it for? The it is used for government because it's a neuter gender. It cannot be used for a person, right? Not for a man or a woman. So this gives you a hint that these 2 sentences are both talking about the government. So they form a pair. So first is noun pronoun pair. Second is cause and effect pair. Probably one sentence is telling you about some of the cause, and the other sentence will talk about the repercussions or the effects it will have. So if they are talking about the same subject, one is giving you the cause, the second is giving you the effect, always remember they'll form a pair again. Next one is, okay, we will do these 2 together, thought extender and thought reverser. So if you get words like and in the starting, similarly, so always understand this, if a sentence is starting with and or words like similarly, it means they are in addition to something else, to some sentence preceding it. So you'll quickly try to identify which sentence should precede this particular sentence starting with and or similarly. So this is a way to find thought extender, or you can say descriptive pair, both talking about the same thing. It's just that you have to see which one is more generic or which one introduces that thing and which one shows the further extension to that same thing. The other kind of pair is thought reverser kind of pairs. So what if a sentence starts with yet, although and yet shows a contrast? What if you get a sentence starting with but? It clearly says that it is a reverser of something. It is contradicting some other idea. Try to identify the sentence which carries the same idea. It's just that both the sentences of this pair, they will talk about the same subject but in a contradictory way. And what gives you a hint for that? It's always the words and the phrases and the tone in the passage. So here, certain words will give you a hint. Certain phrases that probably are common in both the sentences will give you a hint that they are both talking about the same thing. But are they contrasting each other, or is it a similar kind of description? You have to take care of. Chrono pair means according to the chronology, according to the sequence of the events as of they occurred according to time. For example, there is a passage which talks about India's development or industrial development, let's say. So obviously, if there is a sentence that talks about 1947 at the time of India's independence, and then it talks about 1991 when we opened up for the globalization and the privatization, and then it talks about the present year 2023, what is the vision of the government to improve the technology or to improve the industrial aspects for the country or prospects for the country. Obviously, the first sentence or the sentence that should come initially will be 1947 sentence, then will come the 1991 sentence, and then we'll talk about the present day. So it can go from year to year also. It may use some words like then and now, then and today. It may give you months also. You know the sequence of months, you know the sequence of dates also. So just always be very alert while doing the Para Jumble questions. So you get a lot of hints, right? The last one is keyword link. Probably similar kind of phrase is discussed in 2 sentences. You just have to see that both the sentences are talking about the same thing. So you again have to be very attentive while reading these sentences. I hope it's clear that how to make pairs. Once you have guessed the opening line, made certain pair, write them aside, and you will be very close to guessing the answer. Step number 3 is try to identify the concluding sentence. So I know that it's not always too obvious that a concluding sentence would have keywords like therefore, hence, but still the connotation, the sense of the sentence gives you an idea, okay, that the author is concluding here. So what are some of the characteristics of a concluding sentence? It may conclude the whole paragraph. So a sentence that almost talks about the gist or justifies all the points that you have discussed will be your concluding sentence. It may show author's perception or interpretation after talking about different ideas and different people's perspective in different sentences. In that particular sentence that you are going with, probably he is giving you his stance, he is giving you your conclusion. May start with conclusion trigger words such as so, therefore, hence, as a result of, thus, and etc. So if you find one such question in the exam where you have these keywords, then you may consider yourself lucky because they clearly give you a conclusion only. Step number 4 is anticipate the order of the sentences. So with the opening sentence, add certain pairs, you may end up with 2 to 3 different answers or different possibilities. So for example, there was a situation and you came down to this, that okay, one thing I am sure about is that B is the opening sentence and the other thing is C and E are a pair, probably noun-pronoun pair. But you are not sure, and yes, you also know that A is the conclusion of the sentence, but you're not sure if this D will come before C and E or will it come before the A. So this has brought you to these two possibilities. Here also B is the opening, C and E is a pair, A is the concluding sentence. So your next step becomes working wisely towards guessing the right answer through what? Through step number 5, which is confirm from the option. So act very smartly. Keep your possibilities without looking at the option. Once you have come down to one answer, then check it from the options. Often the option, if you have guessed the first 2 sentences, you won't find any close contenders in the options and you will come to one answer. But yes, in the CAT exam, definitely it's the big fish in the pond. It's not that easy because you don't get options in the CAT exam for SR question. So prepare accordingly. Finish from the very beginning stage. Always remember it that you have to do it on your own and you have to trust your gut feeling. Practice enough questions on SR, do previous year paper, do mocks, and then see if this portion works for you or not. Well, of course, it will also depend upon the set of questions they have given you in the exam. So that D-Day and the question that you are seeing, if you feel the subject area of this Para Jumble is very easy and I'm easily able to guess the answer, then you may go with it, right? So step number 5 is confirm from the option, tally your answer with the ones already given in the options. It will help you to wisely guess the right answer. So I hope these 5 tips are now clear to everyone. How about we see some examples related to it and try to use these tips over there. Let's see this one. Okay, so this is the first example. I hope the screen is visible to all of you. I'm gonna give you some time, read it, pause the video, and let's see who's going to answer this question. Right, so let me just read it for you. Meanwhile, I am expecting a response from all of you. Drop in your answers, guys. At a time when growth in the Indian mobile phone market has flattened out over the last 1 year, the rural markets are providing a vital lifeline. Okay, this seems pretty good, a general kind of sentence. It can be the opening one. To further be sure about it, let's read the rest of the sentences. Nokia is also What is the hint word here? Why are they using the word also? It means it is an addition to some other sentence. This is going to make a pair with some other sentence, B, because it has a word which is also. Also shows addition to something. Something should precede it, some sentence. So this cannot be the opening sentence. Leading cell phone makers claim that these markets. What are these market? These is a pronoun. We have to find out for what word have they used. For which noun have they used these? These markets are witnessing sales growth upward of 30%. This is also talking about growth of the market. But which market? This idea was introduced in this sentence, A sentence. At a time when growth in the Indian mobile market has flattened out, overall the Indian mobile market was flattened out over the last 1 year, the rural market, so this rural market is the subject of this paragraph and it is introduced in sentence A, are providing a vital lifeline. The tone is positive in this one about the rural market, the tone is positive in this one also, where you can say this is a thought extension of A because it is giving you percentage, it is giving you data. C is further reinforcing the fact that rural mobile market the graph has been going upwards. So yes, the first thing is clear. A is the introduction and C forms a pair with A because C talks about the similar thing and gives you some data also, some percentage also. This includes separate distribution model. This is the key word here we should be focusing on. Now it should click our minds that this is a pronoun. For which antecedent noun is this used? Let us understand the idea. We will further be able to link the ideas. This includes separate distribution models, tying up with microfinance companies to offer handsets at easy installments and launching handsets customized for the rural consumer. Again, they're talking about the rural mobile market only. So much so that the likes of Nokia, Samsung, Motorola and Spice are drawing up separate business plans for these markets. So do you see something? B was a sentence which only talked about Nokia. E is a sentence which is talking about not just Nokia but Samsung, Motorola and Spice also are drawing up separate business plans for these market. These market means again the rural market. So I can safely say that E and B forms a pair because I told you from broader to narrower, from general to specific. First you generally talked about the rural mobile market, then you came down to name some of the topmost brands in mobile market, then you further narrowed it down only to Nokia. Also, the word also is a hint here. So E and B forms a pair. In the E also we say these market, and before this C also was talking about these market. So I can say E and yes, B. E and B. Because B only talks about Nokia. One more thing. What is the sentence B talking about Nokia? Nokia is also betting on rural specific mobile services to growth. So he is saying that the Nokia services has promised some of the mobile services. What are those mobile services? This means the facilities that Nokia is providing. This includes separate distribution model, tying up. So this is all about Nokia. What all is Nokia offering? What makes it different from Motorola or Spice? Because it's offering all these services. So D clearly becomes the closing sentence here, the concluding sentence. I hope you did understand how to answer this particular question. Very good, Aman. You were very close to answering the right answer. I hope you would have got some idea why the sequence is A, C, E, B and D. Guys, A and C make a pair, E and B make a pair, and D clearly is the closing line because D makes a pair with B. Because B point says that Nokia offered many services and D tells us what are those services. Let us see the last question for today and let's see if you're able to answer it or not. An obvious historical parallel is with 1992, when the British government was fighting to keep the pound within Europeans' exchange rate mechanism. See, the hint words. I have already underlined the key phrases or the key words that you should be focusing on. An obvious historical parallel. Parallel is a kind of comparison. But after reading the first sentence, it comes to my mind why the author is looking for a parallel. Other thing is, what is he looking for the parallel for? So what is he comparing? Something should be coming before this parallel wala line, right? And now what is this line talking about? One thing that I have guessed is this cannot be the opening sentence, because this is further talking about a parallel. It means something has come before it. An obvious historical parallel is within 1992, when the British government was fighting to keep the pound within Europe's exchange rate mechanism. Okay, this is not a general kind of a sentence. It doesn't make picture clear, and I clearly feel that something should be preceding this line to make it even more clear. Why is this sentence talking about Europe's effort to keep its pound fighting, or you can say increasing in value basically? B says, every entertainer knows the feeling. You put up on a great show and the audience responds with a giant raspberry. Raspberry is the audience do not show you the positive kind of response, or they show you a negative response. So this sentence says that every entertainer knows this feeling. If you are not able to do the things that are expected from you, if you're not able to put up that show, if you're not able to satisfy your audience, you will face the raspberry. You will face the disappointment of the audience. But now, it comes to my mind that first sentence was clearly from the economical or commercial aspect. Oh, this B seems a little off from that. Why is it talking about the entertainer and the feeling and not being able to satisfy the audience? Okay, a little confusing. Let's circle it and keep it aside, right? On September 16th, or Black Wednesday, the government increased. This is a past tense. Always be careful of past present also. Increased interest rates in 2 steps from 10% to 15%, only for the pound to keep falling. So one thing that we can notice as of now is there was a situation in Europe where pound was falling and the government was doing or making all the efforts to keep it abroad basically. So this one is also the pound, is talking about pound. C. A is also talking about the pound. The rescue package for Greece, now they have shifted to Greece. The rescue package for Greece that was unveiled this year on May 2nd was rewarded with a renewed plunge. Guys, this is basically, you can say, satirical statement. Plunge is a dip, a dive into something, a leap into something. So this is not a positive sentence. He is saying that the rescue package this year, the rescue package that was announced by the Greece, that was unveiled this year. So this forms a chrono pair. Is this clicking you? It's talking about this year. Then in the first sentence, it talked about a parallel also from the history, that what has happened with Greece this year. We have already seen this in the past. So clearly, Greece point is the present situation, and the Europe and the pound wala example we just took to draw an analogy or draw a similarity or see a parallel. With a renewed plunge in the euro, plus it's talking about euro, not pound, and further falls in Spanish and Portuguese government bonds, the next economies in the market sides. Okay, so this was about Greece. Let us see this one. Investors. So one thing is clear, B will come before A and C will come after A, because this also talks about the pound, C also talks about the pound. So I can write A and C make a pair and D will come before it, right? Let's read this one. Investors simply did not believe that the government would inflict that much of pain on its citizens in order to defend the currency. So can we see some answers now? Okay, I can see there is one response. Very nice. Aman, try answering this one. Try answering this one. So now did you see one thing? All the sentences are clearly talking about in practical, about the practical situation, about the actual thing that has been happening or had happened in Europe and has recently happened in Greece. It's just that the second sentence is a little off, or rather I would not say it's off, it lays the basis. Before talking about the failure of these governments to keep their economies in shape, author says that everyone, every entertainer knows this feeling that you feel a lot of pressure when you're not able to satisfy the audience. So B provides the opening or the base and sets the tone of the whole paragraph. Then the current situation was presented in D because this talks about this year. So if I look for the chrono pair, this year should come first. And then we drew an analogy or a comparison from 1992, and I talked about the dip in the pound or the plunge in the prices of pound which happened in Europe, which is further explained in C, which talks about 16th of September in 1992, which is also known as Black Wednesday, and further gives you some of the percentages to explain you that it was really a bad day for all the people because of the decreasing prices of the pounds, right? Falling prices of the pounds. And we are left with E. Investors, be it in Greece, be it in Europe, they simply did not believe that the government would inflict that much of pain on its citizen. So when this happened, 10 to 15% only for the pound to keep failing. Okay, look at this now. The government is the key word here. Let me read it. On September 16th or Black Wednesday, the government increased interest rates in 2 steps. First, they increased it to 10% just to accumulate its revenue basically. The interest rates were increased so much, 10% to 15%, only for the pound to keep falling, and the value of the pound kept on falling. So this was the thing that people could not believe. Investors simply did not believe that the government, so this is the link here, the government would inflict that much of pain on its citizen in order to defend the currency. So do you see that? E will be our closing sentence. So this is how you are supposed to do the Para Jumble questions. I hope it's clear to everyone. Let us see your responses. Okay, Aman, very nice. Pulkit, absolutely right. Yes, your answer is absolutely right. Very nice. Keep it up. So you saw 2 of the questions today. It's not about solving too many questions. I just wanted you to see that everyone, be it an experienced person, be it a newbie, when you sit for the Para Jumble question, initially it is confusing that what is it talking about. But the more you practice it, the more kind of personal tricks you will develop. And these 5 tips, they are time and tested, which will help you in Para Jumble questions. So now if you like the video, do not forget to like it and share it with your friends as much as possible, because that will give me an encouragement to come with more such master tips for all of the questions and different types of areas of the verbal section. Thank you so much. Keep smiling, keep shining, and believe in yourself. Thank you.